Let's see what we got here. It's a little bit bright. That's better. Okay, I think that's not too bad. Okay, audio video check. Everything looking okay? Oh, can you hear me now? Sound good. Oh. I suppose if you move the microphone in place, it'll work better. How's that doing? A little bit better on the microphone thingy? Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Oh. Well, while we're waiting for a few more people to show up, I'll just go ahead and do kind of the personal stuff this week. Hi, Mr. Lodak, Jeff, Mike, Brian, Gene, Dr. Cortex. Hi from, that would be Anatolia, wouldn't it? I mean, I know it's Turkey, but I believe the region is the Anatolian Peninsula. But anyhow, nice to see you again. Oh, good for you, Dr. Cortex. First of all, the good news, Eva's doing pretty darn good. Okay. We are both now signed up at the local day labor place or whatever. And there was a local motel that needed housekeeping staff and this and that and the other. So she spent 4 days last week doing housekeeping at a motel. I think the least she worked one day was about 5 or 6 hours. She's worked, up to 8 hours and stuff. She did surprisingly well, in my opinion, in terms of, for as little exercise as she has been able to get recently, her body held up pretty darn well, and I'm really happy about that. So that's good. I got work scheduled tomorrow and the next day, and she's got 3 days over the weekend. So we got some stuff going on here, even though the season really hasn't opened up yet. And that's good. The project in Nicaragua continues to proceed without a whole lot of direct input from me at the moment. I've gotten our approval to build the flash roaster. So I've got stuff on order right now. It should get here tomorrow, actually, I think so. So Thursday, hopefully I'll be able to start getting all the materials and doing a little bit on that. That will be kind of interesting. And let's see, what else? I got a hold of a power rheostat from an old mine there. Somebody gave it to me there. And according to the knowledgeable person, theoretically the contacts are silver, basically pure silver. And I'm working on getting it apart so I can get the contacts out of it. I have to be a little careful because the refractory material is asbestos and they get hot, I guess. And the other thing is it's there's some bolts that are, there's a lock nut that's rusted shut on it. And so I have to be a little careful in trying to get that off of there and not creating dust and this and that and the other. So got something potentially interesting there. I spent last 2 days working on ashing some of the resin from the mill over here and seeing how much gold is left in it. And basically the initial resin was running about 3 to 4% gold. Hi, Brock. Oh yeah. Be careful driving, Rock. Make sure you're good enough to drive. Take a nap if you need to. And how to get valuable pay to the smelter? Any risk of ambush and get stolen? What do you do with it? Well, that would depend upon um, the risks. If you're talking about in the United States, it should be pretty easy. Pretty easy. If you're talking a third world country or whatever, that can get a lot dicier. I know one situation where the person I know advised the people hire a helicopter, don't tell anybody or whatever. When the helicopter lands, get in it with your family, throw what you can carry on it, go to the nearest airfield, get on a plane, take off, and then do not follow the flight plan until you're out of the country. But secrecy it's hard to beat secrecy for safety. Okay. Um, I got contacted someone yesterday, I think it was. That was yesterday. The person called, wasn't it, little one?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, it was yesterday. And there is a person who contacted me that has a project, and I'm going to be very discreet about what I actually say here. But the project, it's in a fairly hilly area. The diagram behind me is the relief is exaggerated a bit for, to make it easier to show purposes. But it's fairly hilly, and it has reasonable amount of water. It's not like in the middle of the desert or whatever. So there is water immediately there. And it is not an unpatented claim. Again, I'm being very discreet here. But he was discussing what he's got and what he should do at this point. And I thought that is something that I can discuss. The pan you saw in the thumbnail was a picture he sent me. That was one pan full of rock that was crushed in a hammer mill. It wasn't really ground like in a ball mill or anything. You can see the size of the gold particles there, pretty big. And all that is gold, although the texture is such and the staining is such, it's really not bright, shiny yellow gold. Okay. But that's all gold there. And that runs out to about 5 grams from a full pan full. Let's see, who just texted me here? Is it something important? Probably not. This is President Trump. Want to bet it's a computer and not President Trump? He needs to ask me something personal. My president needs my input. Will you stand with me if hit the link? Flip phone. Sorry, Mr. President. But anyhow. It could be rock. I've got some pictures. He sent me another picture of some nuggets. I mean, like this big. Fairly coarse texture. Hasn't been rounded too much, but it has been rounded some. And it doesn't have the real bright, shiny gold like you like to see. So there's probably some staining or some other stuff in it. This particular ore, probably not, but it does have some pyrites associated with it and stuff. Okay. So I don't know too much, but anyhow, and he was doing some surface work and found a surface outcrop of a vein. And the vein is roughly a foot wide. And because it's not an unpatented claim, permitting's pretty easy. And then he can go up there with an excavator and dig it out. And he is giving, what he's doing is he's trenching it out as narrow as he can. He's got a 2-foot bucket. Okay. And then crushing and pulverizing it in a hammer mill and putting it in large containers and hauling it off to a processor and getting a pretty good return on it. I mean, it's pretty good. So I would think that he's got about as good a situation as you can possibly imagine to turn this. I mean, he's already turning a profit, basically, because the stuff is so, so rich that he's able to just trench it and ship it to someone. He's got a jaw crusher, he's got an impact, he got a hammer mill and an excavator, and it's just one of those things that, he's in a great situation, but he's got a lot of unknowns, and he wants to create a lot of knowns there. And in the process, it would be good. Hey, Jean-Francois, it would be a good idea to generate those knowns in a methodology that is going to, if sometimes later he wants to sell this thing, it would do good. So here's the basic situation. Now I've got 2 different veins here showing, simply because I wanted to show 2 different possibilities. Okay. He's planning on obtaining a core drill. He's got the finances. He can just buy a brand new Chinesium one for $60,000, he said. He's not planning on using it for year after year after year in high production situation. Hi, Randy. So it may be perfectly adequate. Once he gets me some details on it, I'll have some people give him some feedback. Well, that's part of it. But the thing is, too, the wall rock here for like 100 feet in each direction is running 0.03 to 0.25 ounces per ton. So that'd be what? 1 to 7 grams parts per million, 200 feet thick. That's interesting. Exactly. But this is why it's important for him to, as he's tearing this down and sampling it as he goes, there's a couple of things that's important here. Number one, all this material here is going to vary dramatically in the grade. Typical volume 1 ton, about half a cubic meter. Jean-Francois, a cubic yard runs usually about 2 1/4 tons. Okay. Average density of soil is much less. That's about, if it's hard packed and dense, it's been there a long time and packed. It's the thing we were taking, we called it bank run, was 1 3/4 tons per cubic yard. Okay. So anyhow, as you're taking this hillside down to expose more and more of your vein, whichever way it goes, all this rock that you move that's not veined, you want to get some sampling and try and segregate it. Okay. You want to have like waste over here, poor grade over here, mid grade over here, and like that, so that when you got down to where you can't mine this anymore and you've moved, thousands of tons, it's been sorted as you do that. And that way it can be utilized better later. Okay. And so you'll set certain things like he reported 0.03 to 0.25 ounces per ton. So you might set up one dump here that was like less than 0.03. Okay, that's waste. 0.03 to 0.1. This would be low grade. And then 0.10 to 0.25, and that's mid grade for them. For most people, that's high grade. Okay. But he's multiple ounce to the ton here. Okay. And so, in order to sample it, he was thinking of taking like 1 ton batches, running it through the crushing, splitting it down, getting an assay. That's pretty good sampling. Okay. Yep, exactly, Rock. And right now, that's what, $150 a ton? That ain't bad for rock. Not when you got a bunch of it. But when you are moving large quantities of rock to expose something, you want to know what you're moving and segregate it if you can. Okay. Sometimes there will be color differences you can tell. Sometimes you can just do hand panning, whatever. I mean, for example, if you're taking this down with equipment, as you take a spot and scratch it with your excavator, sift out, say a kilogram of 30 mesh minus, pan it down. And that's your standard sample. Then you can correlate that with assays and such. And in the field, you can decide, hey, I don't see crap in that. That's waste. Or it's like, oh, that's some good stuff. That goes to the mid-grade ore, But a little bit of effort sorting can be very, very valuable later on. Okay. Another thing that I suggest you do with modern equipment, it's pretty easy to just carry like a handheld unit and get pretty high accuracy. Okay. And I'm not sure exactly what's available. Rock sure as heck does. But I bet you there's some kind of moderately priced, less than $1,000 handheld instrument that if you have especially if you have a differential antenna set up somewhere, you can GPS that to a foot or so. And then as you're digging and you're taking these samples, make sure you note where that particular sample is. Where did it come from? If you start at one corner, let's suppose this is a map view of everything. If you start at this corner, the southwest corner, and make that 0,0 in terms of feet or meters or whatever, then as you go north from that, you get positive integers. As you go east from that, you get positive integers. And you can sit there and say, okay, we were at 150, 200, elevation 3,200. And that means right there, this is a map, not the actual diagram I'm showing here. That'll give you a coordinate in 3-dimensional space so that on your sample thing, you log that, you log the assay, you log any mineralogy that you detect. This is this kind of rock type or that kind of rock type, or this is a bright purple color, whatever. And so as you demolish this hillside, you're gathering detailed data, okay? And you can then plot that in 3 dimensions. There's programs that'll do that pretty easily. I also suggested that the sample number be called. Let's say it was 150 north, 250 east, 3250. That would be the sample number. 150, comma, 250, comma, 3250. That is the, so that later on you can look at that and the number itself identifies its location. Okay. The other thing is if you're doing 1-ton samples, you're crushing them down and checking them out and stuff. There's no reason you can't put 5 or 10 pounds in a Ziploc bag on a shelf. The reason, Rock, and Rock can tell you, if later on you decide to sell this, that information and those samples will allow a mining company to do an evaluation cheaply that will give them a lot of information. And if that's good information, that will improve the value. 1 part per million? Yeah. 1 gram per metric ton is 1 part per million, Jeff. Exactly. So you're gathering information for yourself, plus you're archiving it and samples for later analysis if you decide to do something with it later. Yep. So by doing that, as you tear down this hill, you'll get a lot of information in 3 dimensions. Now, if you're going to start drilling, if you're going to drill a vein, you prefer to come in kind of as close to perpendicular to it as possible so that the intercept in the core accurately represents the actual thickness of the material. If you take a 1 foot wide vein and you come through it at a 45-degree angle, you got a 1.4 foot intercept. Okay. So if you can come in at 90 degrees, it makes it a lot easier. Now, in the case of this red structure, what you'd have to do is come back here and drill this way. And you can see it's rapidly going to get a lot of rock here. Now, if this is low grade but ore, that's highly useful anyway. The other thing is you can kind of fan drill and then calculate how that affects your intercept. If you set up a particular spot and then do it like this, you can also do that. It's a little more complicated. How thick are typical veins? There is no such thing. I've seen veins 50 feet thick. I've seen them an inch thick. Okay. In this case, it's about a foot. Okay. Well, the engineers nowadays have the computers to do the thinking for them. Now, in the case of the blue vein, you're in much better shape because you can build a road here and here and here. And then you can come in and almost the same distance, if the vein is dropping roughly parallel to the hillside, you can do a lot shorter drilling that way and get excellent data. Okay. And again, your cores should also be retained. Yeah, and I say that there is no rule of thumb. Rock, you've been doing this for what, 35, 40 years? Um, do you know any rule of thumb that holds widely, except there's no rule of thumb that holds widely? There's enormous variation. Nature has a lot of ways of doing things. And therefore, you have to talk to the rock. You have to sample it. You have to examine the samples. You have to analyze the samples. You have to let the rock talk to you and tell you what you got. Okay? And therefore, try and avoid rules of thumb in your thinking, you know, and say the main thing is I need information. Or as somebody likes to say, test, test, test. Is that you, Brian? But anyhow, this is where you just gather a lot of data. Now, this guy's got a sweet situation because he's got multi-ounce to the ton outcropping on surface for hundreds of feet. Okay, on a hillside. It don't get much sweeter than that. You can get a lot of value pretty cheaply. Okay, I mean this guy has got an excellent setup, and exactly, Rock. And not only how is it distributed, but what is the extractive metallurgy you're going to need to apply to that to get it out? It's not just how much is it and how is it distributed? What's the form of the gold? What is the matrix it's in? The whole 9 yards. You have to analyze all these variables and come up with a reasonable answer. Rarely do you come up with a perfect answer. This guy's got about as perfect a situation as I have seen. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Rock. But let's say he's got a very nice setup, a very nice thing to work on. And I say, hopefully I'll get down there and get involved in a little bit. He hasn't asked for anything. And he's a smart character. Okay. So I doubt there will be a whole lot of that. But he's got a nice situation. And it's nice to have somebody call up and chat. And it's like, wow, you're doing great. I love that. Oh, you know, and that is cool. But yeah, that's the situation they've got. I'm not sure. It's basically pretty much near vertical. The actual vein is something more like this. Okay. It's a little bit irregular, but it averages near vertical. Okay. So he can sample it pretty well. I am sure the fuel costs. You take care, Rock. Thanks for showing up. Yeah, I can understand that, Rock. Tomorrow I get to pick up trash. It's for $17 an hour. I'll live with it. Have fuel costs been a more significant issue in mining recently? Typically on a big open pit type mine, I believe fuel is the second largest cost next to labor. And tires are like the third. It was when years ago. With the larger equipment, maybe that's changed, especially now that they've got semi-autonomous and autonomous vehicles. But yeah, fuel is going to have a huge thing. The other thing is the cost of bunker fuel, which is basically the low-grade fuel that large vessels use when they're transiting oceans. When they get close to shore, they typically have to transition to something more like a low sulfur diesel fuel for environmental regulations. But bunker fuel has doubled in the last month. So your fuel cost for ships has essentially doubled in the last month. Is one reason why, if they don't get the logistical situation fixed fairly quickly, it's going to tend to snowball out of control. Okay. And so they have to put forth an effective effort to deal with the situation in the strait. And we shall have to see. Everyone in the administration is talking real confident. They aren't really telling us a whole lot of their plans, which is fine with me. I don't want to tell our enemy our plans, but it's a concern. Another concern is there's a lot of fertilizer that moves through that plate, that strait too. One of the big sources of fertilizer is natural gas. So by making the fertilizer in the same place you get the gas, it saves a lot of transportation costs on your natural gas. So there's a lot of fertilizer bottled up in the Gulf too. And it's something they call planting season. I really don't know, Francois. There's a guy, Glacial Gold Hunter, and I recall him showing up 4 to 6 months ago, something like that. He's already got 36,000 subscribers, and he's monetized, and this, that, and the other. And it seems to be, he seems to be playing the algorithms quite well. Again, that's not my thing. That's Lucas. Okay. But he seems to have done a very good job looking at his content. I say it's good content, but nothing extraordinary. Not like the sort of things like, oh, I got to see what he's doing this week because it's amazing. You know, things like, say, Jason with his, you know, the high grade gold ore and the gold mine and stuff like that, where you can really say, wow, this is inherently spectacular, you know. And Glacial Gold Hunter is okay, but nothing spectacular. You know, you've got Jason at Flower Gold Wizards. He doesn't do big, showy, spectacular stuff, but he's doing pretty good. I think that may be part of it, Jean-Francois. Turbo Button is, I think, more to just out of the Knight Rider thing. Nitrous injection, if you have an engine built for it, it is a method of getting a lot more energy out of that engine by injecting nitrous oxide and extra fuel at the same time into that engine and getting good combustion. It will give substantially more power out of that engine. It wears the engine out a whole lot quicker too. Okay. Well, Michael, I got a guy that sent me some pictures of some stuff too that, you know, assuming that what that yellow stuff is gold, it's, oh yeah, you bet, Jean-Francois, especially if it's a stock engine. If you don't have the big hefty parts in it designed for that, yeah, it'll blow it up really quick. And, but anyhow, this guy sent me some pictures and I'm looking at the surfaces and I'm going, well, in the nice yellow patch there, the surface is like at least 25% yellow, you know, and I mean, I'm talking like areas like this in the rock. It's like, assuming that's gold, and he says it is, and he sounds knowledgeable enough to be able to ascertain the difference between gold and chalcopyrite or whatever. It's like, wow, that's some really good stuff. You know? I'm not sure exactly what's going on with YouTube. There's a lot of stuff changing pretty quickly nowadays, but YouTube, I never worried about playing the algorithms. I never worried about monetizing it. And so I never studied it. So it's kind of hard for me to have any kind of an opinion. I agree that with the recent price of gold going up, everything gold mining or silver mining is going to get a lot more interest. Okay. That's pretty guaranteed. So we shall have to see what happens. But yeah, I was really, I was surprised when I saw how much Glacial Gold Hunter had increased over the last, let's say, my recollection is about 6 months. You know, so Gold Bay is also a big mining company too, I believe. But yeah, it seems to be going pretty good. And right now, I'm thinking about maybe monetizing in the not too distant future. But see, Eva in a little less than a year is going to be able to qualify for Medicare.
Maybe not.
Oh, what, are they changing the rules?
Yeah, and they have to wait until 65, but that doesn't matter right now.
Okay. I don't know.
I can get on Social Security next year.
Yeah. Well, if you get on Social Security, I think you should be able to get on Medicare.
No. You can only get on Medicare early if you have like end-stage kidney disease and a couple of other illnesses. But okay. I will confirm that with the Social Security Administration.
Yeah. I am unaware of the U.S. government specifically favoring gold. They are definitely favoring critical minerals.
And they made silver a critical mineral.
Yeah, silver, probably even copper, but rare earths, things like that. Those are getting like emergency priority. And they've also got at least one new smelter, $6 billion smelter refinery complex planned for Tennessee. I know there's some people working on a new smelter up in this neck of the woods, although they say it's probably going to wind up in Nevada due to regulatory issues. But there's a definite wave of building going on right now in this neck of the woods. Properties, refineries, processing, things like that. Oh, I don't think there's anything subtle about it, Jean-Francois. I think the Trump administration is, pedal to the metal, self-sufficiency. They want us to make our own steel, make our own copper, make our own lead, all that other stuff. That smelter in Tennessee was basically a base metal smelter, although it'll produce byproducts, silver and gold too. But the idea was to build a state-of-the-art facility that, that would work, Solersmith, Brian. I'm going to see how the flash roasting works. It would probably also salt roast, but when you're salt roasting, now you got a whole lot of more vaporization issues. And we'd have to see. How is Eva's health? It's doing well, James. I'm very pleased to to state she worked 4 days last week at a motel doing housekeeping, and she's not crippled up right now. She's got back's a little bit sore, but she'd be ready to go to work again tomorrow. Did they deregulate heavily? Yes, they are working on that vigorously, Jean-Francois. And that is the rare earth refineries, things like that. They are working vigorously. Not yet, Jean-Francois. But they are working vigorously to streamline stuff, to fast track stuff, and things like that. I know at least one project where it's got some rare earths, and they go, well, that'll save 2 or 3 years of permitting. So I can tell you there is a tremendous push from the government right now to try and get indigenous production of everything of any critical nature at all that they can. And considering what this country has, that's almost everything. There's very few things that we can't produce in quantity ourselves. Okay. Not much oil in Arizona. No, I don't think in Arizona, but there's oil up here and a lot of oil in Texas, and they're drill baby drilling. They also just announced a big refinery in Texas near the southern part of Texas Gulf there. And I forgot what the price was, but it seems to me, if my mind isn't playing games on me, it was $300 billion for a refinery complex. And so, yes, there is a tremendous press all across the federal government right now to build something. It's not getting a lot of press and airtime, for which I'm happy, because then the environmentalists won't realize what's going on until after it's accomplished. They're not making a whole lot of scene about this, but behind the scenes, there's a big push indeed. So we shall see how it goes. Well, Jean-Francois, that seems rather A, inefficient, and B, foolish, because I think the Australian environmentalists are going to get a lot of pushback now. But yeah. Hi, honey bunny. So there's no reason you shouldn't be refining your own stuff in Canada. Jean-Francois, it's foolish. It's foolish. Why should you trust us? I love America. I don't trust America. Why the hell should you guys trust America? I think every country, every jurisdiction, like the state of Montana, I think should be working to make the state of Montana as resilient to outside disruptions as reasonably possible. Obviously, we can't be 100% self-sufficient, but I'm sure there's places where a little bit of extra here, a little bit of thought there, would vastly increase our ability to just ride over bumps in the road without a problem. Hi, Red Wing. I am thinking Carney is basically on the Chinese payroll. Yep. I think Biden was on the Chinese payroll too. He might not have even known it was. Maybe it's just the people that were guiding him were on the Chinese payroll. I don't know. Yeah, Michael. Anyway, Honey Bunny, just letting you know, Eva's doing much better. She worked 4 days last week doing housekeeping at a motel, and she's doing all right. So her body is definitely getting a lot stronger. I know you cared. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff changing around right now. And for the people who can predict stuff, yep, me too, Honey Bunny. For the people who can predict things, there's a lot of opportunities out there. I personally, I don't have squat to invest anyhow, and we've been avoiding getting there, and because of the health issues, not focusing on that. Yeah. The problem with Tennessee, Arkansas, stuff like that is humidity. Temperatures aren't too bad. California was ideal until the lefties took it over. In terms of other countries, I'm not that familiar. I know Central America is pretty hot and humid. I did some work with Jason over the internet a couple weeks ago. Jared, not Jason, and he was always sweating. Well, if winter is okay, then someplace like Montana wouldn't be too bad because the humidity isn't much over here. During the wintertime, there's a lot of, like today, I went out there, the last couple of days, no frost on the windows at all on my car. But that's helpful here. United States, yeah, if I was in Canada, I'd consider it, but I'd wait and see what happens over the next couple of years. Argentina's might have possibilities, Jean-Francois. It's a temperate climate. It's, not a third world country. And that might be good. Equatorial Antarctica. Yeah, that's going to be a tricky one to get. Yeah, well, Jean-Francois, you might consider the pluses and minuses of being essentially a nomad. With modern technology, modern banking technology, the internet, and this and that and the other, you have a lot more freedom to go wherever you'd like and keep your money accessible no matter where you are. Somebody once described it as a sovereign citizen, somebody who goes wherever the environment is best without worrying too much about what's the jurisdiction, except as to how it affects the environment, and depending on your personality, do you like a home base? Do you like a home, or do you like to travel? If you like to travel and you don't need to take a lot of stuff with you, it's got some possibilities. You can also essentially snowbird it, Yeah. So in that case, Jean-Francois, you should probably find a good 1 or 2 bases. Okay. One that you can go whenever you need to use, like your machine shop, etc. And another one that's a comfortable place to stay. Like, say, if you had one in Montana, 6 to 8 months out of the year, the weather's not bad. The other 4 months out of the year, you can maybe, go down to Argentina or whatever, something like that. If you have the resources, then you need to honestly evaluate how you can utilize those resources to give you a rewarding and safe life. Say, for example, I would not recommend getting a house in Mexico. Your life expectancy might be bad. But I say the idea of having a base of operations in Montana and a winter home in Argentina, not too bad. 55-foot catamaran, that's got possibilities, I say, I don't know, but keep your mind open to possibilities. Don't let conventional thinking lock you into something. I mean, I was thinking conventionally for decades, doing my kettle corn and this and that, and just paying bills. And it got to be a hell of a grind. And then Eva said, "Why the hell are you doing that? Let's just go." Okay. And we did. And I've never regretted it. Good for you, Jean-Francois. That's the thing. And the other thing you can do when you're exploring possibilities too is you can just visit a place. A lot of times, just going someplace for a month or so, you can really get to understand the culture and the cultural environment and the physical environment and this and that and the other. And you don't have to necessarily spend a lot of money to do so. You can take tours, you can, rent a, what do they call that? Where you rent a house or whatever. My brain's really getting bad. Little one, what do they call that?
What?
Where you rent a house somewhere for a period of time.
I don't know.
It's like Uber. It's got a name.
Airbnb.
There you go. Okay. So yeah, you can get an Airbnb for, a couple weeks, couple months. Yep. You got it too, Jean-Francois. And just try it out. That's also really good if you're saying, well, I really like the idea of Argentina, but I don't know what town or city I want to be in. You can test the waters without making a big financial commitment. You might try New Zealand or Polynesia or some part of Australia, or there's lots of possibility, and you can go down there and you can try it, and you might be there a week and say, hell with this crap. Or you might go, wow, this place is really cool. A lot of people, for example, think camping sounds really cool until they try it. And then they realize, it can get cold, it can get wet, it can get hot, it can do all kinds of things. But one thing it isn't is air conditioned, Oh, there you go. That sounds good, Jean-Francois. Rhodesia, unfortunately, there's no Rhodesia anymore. It's Zimbabwe. And I don't know what it's like now, but it was less than ideal for quite a while. Yeah, I say some people just hate camping once they actually wind up doing it. Other people wind up, motorhoming it or something like that, where it's like, okay, I've got a mobile home sort of thing, travel trailer, whatever. But this is the kind of thing where if you've never done it, you really don't know what it's like. A boat's nice until you go out on one for a while and you find out you get seasick, that sort of thing. So I'd like camping too. I mean, I don't mind sitting in the camper for, months, sort of thing. Yeah, glamping, exactly, where you get the out of doors, but you got all the amenities at the same time. Yeah, I know, John Francois, but some people get it a lot worse than others, And so this is the sort of thing where if you can do it, that's my suggestion. Try it first. And, see what happens. Another thing is that, if you get to the age, sometime in the unfortunately not too distant future, hopefully as far away as possible, Eva and I are going to wind up in a position where physiologically we just can't do what we have been doing for the last 5 or 10 years. And if you get to the point where physiologically you need to live in like an assisted living situation, some people found out that, hey, going on cruise ships, it can cost you less money and the scenery is always changing, Sounds cool, Jean-Francois. Yeah, I've done a lot of camping myself. But I say there's other people that think it sounds really cool until they try it and they go, hell no. Others are like, I love this. But you'll never know until you try it. Okay. I didn't know they still did that, Jean-Francois. Have you ever read the book Tramp Royale by Robert Heinlein? Back in the 1950s, he went on a round the world trip with his wife, and a lot of the distance was covered on freighters that had accommodations on them too. Other times were an actual type cruise ship. What did you read on Heinlein? Because it depends. He's got a couple different styles. The first book he did was horrible. Tramp Royale was not fiction. It was a travel log of the round the world trip he and his wife took. And it was interesting to me because of some of the things that was just shocking. For example, the worst place was New Zealand. It was horrible. The moon is a harsh mistress. Is that what you're talking about, Jean-Francois? The moon is a harsh mistress?
The one with Michael Down.
It says the moon says the moon's something.
The one with the computer that started a revolution.
Yeah, that would be the moon is a harsh. It said the moon something. It was an apology of communism. I don't know. I really don't think it was about communism. I don't know how deep you got into it. Okay. But I didn't really, it was basically kind of the American Revolution, sort of thing, in a different form, but the same kind of thing. It was revolutionaries not being revolutionary because they wanted to set up a utopia, but because it was going to collapse and they had to do something. I'm not sure, Jean-Francois. I don't recall. Now, there was certain stuff that was in that discussed varieties of different societal and governmental organizational principles and stuff.
Actually, it's more like ANCAP, anarcho-capitalism.
Yeah, anarcho-capitalism is how Eva describes it. Take care, Randy. I don't know. I really don't know, Jean-Francois, but I say, Tramp Royale was what it was like to travel around the world in the 1950s. And I found it very interesting because, again, it was a pure travel log. There was no fiction at all. It's what they did, what they saw, what they experienced. And I say it was interesting to me that the worst place was New Zealand. Said it was horrible. Apparently it was extremely primitive at that time, basically. He's like, if somebody just came to New Zealand and set up a burger joint, they would make bank. The food sucks. The service sucks. Everything just sucked at the time. That was surprising. But I mean, the observations through South Africa and everything else. I say I found it very interesting because it was, what was it like back then? Likewise, he went to Russia in the 50s. He explains it saying, I wanted to see what the enemy looked like. You need to understand your enemy. And that was also interesting. It wasn't a book, though. It was basically, I don't know, 20, 30 pages, an essay, I guess you would call it. But that was also interesting because he was a good observer of human nature. For example, in Russia, he said, the whole principle that Russian tourism is to extract as much money out of you with as little effort as possible. Everything was always difficult. You had to pay bribes, this, that, and the other. And he said, and inevitably you're going to wind up with somebody, you pay them for something, they don't deliver, and this and that and the other. Yeah. See, where's the need? But yeah, it was one thing that was interesting was in Russia, he said, if you're just getting stonewalled and stuff, there is something that you can do. It's dangerous, though, because it's either going to work or it's going to backfire on you spectacularly. Because the Russian system was very much stratified. There was bosses, servants, and the servant down here was the boss of the person below him. And say very stratified. And he says, so if you just can't get them to do what you need to do, you can try this. He says, now, I don't guarantee your safety. You may wind up in Siberia. And that was simply, you just go into a rage. And you start out with Niet kulturny, which basically means you're uncultured savage, which in Russia is about the worst insult possible. You barbarian. Okay. And then just go crazy. He says, because psychologically, you're either on top or on the bottom in Russia. That's it. And so everyone's trying to figure out where their position is, who they can push around and who can push around them. And when you're doing that, their natural reaction is, this guy must be the boss. Otherwise, he wouldn't be behaving like this. It says, on the other hand, if they call your bluff, you're in big trouble. $100 a pair, huh? Oh, yeah. Yep. Well, and again, you've mentioned two things so far, Jean-Francois. Capitalism works on the concept of you find a need and then you fill it while making a profit. And so that's that's the thing, when an entrepreneurial person sees an opportunity like that and then seizes the opportunity, they can do real well, you know. Um, but that's another thing about traveling is you get to experience other cultures, other locations, other ways of doing things. It's extremely educational. And I generally am more interested in seeing history and nature than I am in seeing a lot of other stuff. I don't like lots of people. Sometimes you got to put up with them. I'd love to go to St. Petersburg and spend a week or two at the Hermitage. That's got to be amazing. Yes, Jean-Francois, you're absolutely correct on both of those things. Um, Other countries are learning the lessons, and other countries have seemed to have forgotten them. Think Europe. Um, and it's a shame because those simple principles. I mean, well, Europe, how about New York City or Los Angeles? You know, the whole idea of the freedom to create reasonably without a lot of undue restrictions and to make a reasonable profit and keep it. If you allow that, you get growth, you get money, you get wealth. You know, if you try and skim everything you can, it goes bad. In Canada, unemployment is about 45%. That's horrible. That's not bad. That's horrible. Yes, most governments are protection rackets. Call it legalized crime syndicate. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that seems to have been a little bit of a change, Jeff. Yep, Jean Francois, that's what's happening in New York. I presume that's what's happening all over California. Um, and they don't seem to care. I find it hard to believe that these politicians don't know. I don't believe they are that freaking ignorant of reality. I think they're just lying scum. But that's my personal opinion. Well, which way are you walking, wage slave? Uh, well, to some extent, they're engineered to do that. I think to a great extent, it's not that they're designed to do that deliberately. It's just their functionality is that way deliberately because they're trying to get control and everything, and they don't care about the consequences. I agree, Jean Francois. You can't be that good a liar without knowing what's a lie and what's the truth. Otherwise, you wind up tripping over your own feet too often. um, Not never, but that's not your first assumption, honey bunny. I mean, there's times you just look at it and you go, yeah, that's malevolence. I'm not exactly sure how to make it better. Michael, the American experiment was a vast improvement over what came before it, but it's clearly not perfect. Uh, hey, modern Michigan prospector, how's it going? Don't recall seeing you before here. But yeah, say this is the problem. And Trump understands these things. I wish he was a better talker. Oh, he's so annoying. How are I? I'm doing okay. Michigan. Eva's doing okay. We're in a year of change right now. Yes, I agree, Jean-Francois. Well, a guy named Tusi, he's an Iranian, has a YouTube channel and stuff. He says you should never take Trump literally, but you should always take him seriously. Creek drop. I am unfamiliar with creek drop. I presume it's an anti-floating stuff for keeping gold from floating out of your pan or something to that effect. Michigan. Let's see. Let me see what I got. K-R-E-K drop. What is this? Is that Sterling Creek drop? Cute wet? No, that's not it. Let me see. How did you spell that? K-R-E-E-K-D-R-O-P. Turn it into one word. Creek drop. See what happens there. There we go. I see that right now. Are you Prospector's Dream, Michigan? Or is that somebody else selling your product? Well, yeah, it's not the kind you'd want to use in. So what's your particular? Did you sell it directly, Michigan? It's something I might have a use for in the future here, so I want to, get a link. Well, it probably would have an effect on a pristine creek to some extent. Yeah, I do too. I'm in closed circuit systems, so it's not that critical to me at this point. Hi, Mr. Virtue. So as I say, Michigan, do you sell it directly or only through distributors or whatever? Okay. Because if you sell it directly, I'd like to, it also dries your hands, huh? Sounds like it's got some alcohol in it. I sell it directly too. Okay, and what would I look for in terms of the link to your particular Michigan Gold, Michigan? Oh, there we go. There we go.
Wow, Monty's already out.
Okay, let me. Okay, let me save that one. Okay, got it saved there. Alrighty, I've got it saved. If I run into a situation where I need to worry about that, say normally my stuff, surfactants are the least of the problems. It's a matter of Other stuff is usually much worse. Although I try and avoid anything that's really horrendous, nevertheless, pH 10 dropped into a creek by itself would probably be a bad thing. Oh. Well, that's a really good potential factor in it. If there's very low foaming, that's very good. Foam is a real problem in some situations. So I say I got it saved there. If I run into a situation where I need a surfactant or a surfactant equivalent, Well, it's not only that, but they can float the gold too, But yeah, that's why I use generally jet dry instead of Dawn for hand panning. It's because it works. It's more effective with less bubbles, and the bubbles can be a real problem, real hassle. If you're doing a process where you have something the equivalent of a sluice box or whatever, yeah, you really don't want bubbles there. Yeah, that would be bad.
Monty's already out.
Cool, huh?
Yeah.
Are you going to do a mouse tonight?
No, I'm thinking tomorrow night.
Why don't you get Monty out and show him to everybody, little one?
I don't want to pull him out of his desert hide area.
Oh, okay.
Every time you pull him out of an area, he forsakes it for several weeks because he feels vulnerable. Okay.
I'm not sure where a good source of pine oil is. I know they put it in pine sol. No, Eva just doesn't want to disturb him. She says every time I snatch him out of an area, he tends to forsake it for a while there. He's a little neurotic. He's a python, but he's a neurotic little python. Very pretty, though. A conventional coloration pattern. I guess they come in lots of different ones. But Murphy's oil soap? Okay. Oh. So, I say that's about it. The Nicaragua project is a little bit on hold, although I'm working on the flash furnace for that. Not that I've ever seen Jean-Francois, although big mining chemical supplies would, because it's part of flotation reagent systems. So they should be able to get that pretty good. Let's say hopefully I'll get the flash furnace put together this week and get a video on it. Yeah, I say that's kind of the way it goes for stuff like that. Hey, Lito. No, say that just, I worked one day and then the rest of it, I spent a couple days. It takes a long time to ash 100 grams of resin in that little furnace. It seems to be working well. Still, I have zero problems with it. Just zero problems with that furnace so far. It's been great. But it took me all day long. Well, actually a little more, because I put the last bit in at the end of the night and just left the furnace on at 600 all day, all evening, and then just came out in the morning and turned it off. The change in bullion exchange from west to east? You mean from the American markets, like COMEX and stuff and Shanghai? No, we haven't. What's going on, Mr. Virtue? Eva's been kind of busy. I would imagine the prices of, at least in the United States, have changed pretty significantly since we started dropping bombs. I'm not sure exactly why the price went down.
A lot of people are wondering about that.
Yeah, so it seems counterintuitive. Russia sold off 15 tons of gold recently, says Honey Bunny. Yeah, but 15 tons very, very much scheme of things. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure the commodities have been going. Yeah, how safe is it to plant right now because it's so unseasonably warm? You know? Well, according to Jean-Francois, the big finance companies are now officially saying that the paper to physical silver is 7-1.
Yeah, right.
Eva is expressing incredulity and disbelief.
There's no way that maths. If that math anywhere near that, we wouldn't see the shit we see on COMEX in terms of all the contracts being settled for cash.
She was saying that, yeah, right. That's why they're settling all these COMEX contracts for cash. Nah, it's got to be. Jean-Francois thinks it's more like 10 to 20-1.
Oh, it's a lot more than that.
Okay. She believes it's more than that.
Metal ratio in gold is hovering around over 300-1, and silver's pretty damn close to it.
Okay. So I don't know. And this also brings up the secondary concerns about something like the Iran war right now. Is if everything else was fine and stable and the only thing we had to worry about was the price of oil, it would be a lot simpler situation to calculate. As it is, it's kind of hard to tell what might do what, where, why, and how. And especially with places like, say, China, which may be pretty unstable in when you get down to the brass tacks, and places like Europe, Nicaragua, it's probably one of those small economies where they really can't borrow a whole lot or do anything to really dig themselves too deep a hole, There's a YouTube channel that's fascinating called Rational Ranchers, little one. He says the guy's done a lot of interesting analysis over history.
What's the name of it?
Rational Ranchers.
YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube.
Is he on X?
I have no clue.
We need people on X.
Yep. Hey, Lito. So you're resting near Toano, Virginia? Well, Virginia's way the heck over there. That part I know. Never heard of Toano. Nicaragua is propped up under U.S. aid, so now they're kind of hurting. Possibly. I don't know. I haven't heard anything. From what I've been hearing, just talking to Jared and Brandon, it's not unstable at the moment that I can tell. There's nothing that they've related to me seems to indicate, wow, we've got some issues going on here. So I really don't know. 1 cow equals 1 ounce gold. Not terribly different from what I know from the past, but yeah. You like pure potassium nitrate? Well, it should be a pretty good fertilizer. Yeah. Be careful not to burn with it, though. I mean, it's pretty intense, I would imagine. Cheap cow. Well, is that a prize breeding bull? Anyhow, yeah, I say it's a complex situation. I mean, my analysis is I'm pretty sure Trump believes that if he doesn't get this thing settled pretty quickly and advantageously, it's going to be politically disastrous for him. So I think that he's got a high level of confidence that the plan, whatever it is going to work and work fairly quickly. Less than 2 months before the end becomes apparent, the end state, whether you're already there at the end state or whether a suitable end state has been achieved that is relatively stable, that he can kind of walk away from it. For example, if the regime has been toppled, all their weapon systems have been destroyed, and we managed to get at least an agreement to take the gold out, the uranium out of the country, then he could walk away from it at that point and let the Arabs and the Israelis help the Iranian people clean up the mess. Yeah, he's got a lot of pushback from a lot of people. I think, well, as I understand the situation, this is from a variety of sources and it's independent of Trump, the Iranians, being ruthless bad guys, but not stupid ruthless bad guys, decided that if they focused their immediate efforts on building up their ballistic missile inventory and protection and stuff, so they could basically obliterate the Middle East whenever they wanted, but where each incremental missile doesn't make that much difference, they could achieve a point where nobody could mess with them without blowing up the whole Middle East. And then they would be free to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons. And until then, they just put it on hold. And that's kind of the thought process. And they were building. Hi, Lido. From Georgia. Sunny boy. Hey, Lido. Yep. But anyhow, and so the thinking went essentially like this. There is no time in the foreseeable future where it's going to be more advantageous to take decisive action. Okay? Because it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And in the short-term future, as in 1 to 2 years, it'll be impossible to take decisive action without catastrophic consequences. Okay? And therefore, we need to take the best opportunity in the near future to do it. Then you had those demonstrations, which from some of the things may have been caused by financial strains, which we helped engineer. Don't know about that. hadn't been talked about too much, but I don't know. And but assuming that's the case, I mean, they were building ballistic missiles 10 times faster than we could build interceptors. And that's my understanding too, Jean-Francois. The Iranian diaspora and most of the Iranian people are perfectly happy with the concept of let's get rid of the mullahs now. But so we had an opportunity, and there was a plan, whatever the plan was. It involves a lot of bombs to essentially create an end state or an intermediate state where the Iranian people could then evict the mullahs and they could get reintegrated with the rest of the people in the Middle East in a mutually beneficial relationship. That seems to be pretty obviously the plan. Whether it's going to work, whether it's a good plan, whether it's, oh, no, it's not going to, I can't tell. It looks reasonable from what I can see. I'm not an expert, okay? But it's abundantly clear that that is the plan. They are working to prep the ground to create the situation where it will be relatively easy for the Iranian population, if they so desire, to take on the mullahs and win. Because there's going to be a whole lot less of them, and B, all their bang sticks are going to be gone. We've been spending a lot of time blowing up stuff, and the Israelis have been spending a lot of time blowing up people. Between the two, express employment. Well, let's see, what's that? Just now, what did express employment? Good evening, Keith. You're set to start your job, set those alarms. Ding, 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 ding. Roger. Wilco. Sound. So anyhow, I'll say that appears to be the situation. So far, the blowing up shit and blowing up people seems to be going pretty well. It was interesting. Was you the secret police? Yeah, I imagine that creates a bunch of resentment, Jean-Francois. But yeah, just yesterday or the day before, I think it may be today that the numbers have changed. It's like we've destroyed 13,000 targets and we still have 3,000 to go. Okay. And as such, that shows, number one, there's a detailed plan. Again, without being able to opine on whether it's a good plan or not, but it's a detailed plan. And it's relatively close to the end of stage 2, perhaps you might call it, where basically the Straits of Hormuz are open. The ballistic missiles are essentially gone. Their ability to build ballistic missiles and drone is essentially gone. And we can start, it's either stable or we can start pulling stuff out of the Gulf, whatever. But I would expect to see, he's got less than a month to pull it off. I don't think they'll have to. The Saudis have said they'll be happy to put boots on the ground. Okay. The Israelis are putting boots on the ground in Lebanon against Iranian proxies. The Israelis are putting boots on the ground in Gaza against Iranian proxies. I don't know what's going to happen to the Houthis. They've thrown a couple missiles out in the last day or two, but like 3. So I have no idea. I think right now Israel is a lot more focused on Hezbollah than the Houthis. And unless the Houthis really crank up the missile issue, they're probably going to not draw much attention to themselves. The other thing is that anchorage in the Red Sea, where the Saudis are pumping more and more oil by the day, is within theoretical range of the Houthis. And we shall see how that works out. Yeah, I mean, as far as my guesstimate, and again, don't know how good I am, but I say my guesstimate is we're going to be like pulling back forces in about a month and basically saying, we did what we need to do. You guys clean up the mess. The SWAT team came in and took out the crackheads and everything. It's now up to the neighborhood to clean up the crack house. We took out the crackheads. I think that's the plan. Again, I have no clue as to how well it's going to work. Well, and as I understand it, it's not just Shia, but 12er Shia, which is the sub thing. It's, as I understand, it's a pretty big fraction of total Shias. But this is what the mullahs were. And by the way, the mayor of New York is apparently 12er Shia also. And they believe that the 12th Imam, I forget what his name is, when he was about 5 years old, got put in a well somewhere, and he's been sitting there twiddling his thumbs and playing World of Warcraft ever since then. And when the world undergoes a great convulsion, an apocalyptic war, which will destroy 1/3 of the people on the planet, the 12th Imam, which would now be called the Mahdi, a messianic figure, will come out of the well, reveal himself, and lead the forces of Islam to conquer the planet. Now, the problem with Shia Islam, 12ers, is that first you have to have an apocalyptic war that kills 1/3 of the people on the planet. Okay? And so in that case, they're not rational actors by what we consider. I wouldn't be surprised, Jean-Francois. Islam has some problems in terms of dealing with modern civilization. And there's some, what you might call, modern reformist Muslims. And there are as somebody once said, the problem with Islam is the Quran, you know? Well, I'm afraid that may be sometime in the future, Michael. If that happens, okay, fine. Now, the other question I have is you got the pre-trib rapture, the post-trib rapture, and other stuff like that. Say, are all the Christians going to be raptured before the tribulation, in the middle of the tribulation, after the tribulation? I don't know. Well, even if you have a relatively centralized doctrine like Christianity, you still get psychopaths who start these little cults and this and that and the other. I haven't done a lot of research. I have read the Quran once. Okay. It was an English translation. It was around 1930 by Harvard. It's supposed to be a pretty good one. It was given to me by a Muslim who was evangelizing at the Skagit County Fair. Okay. And I found the literary content to be very poor. Okay. I'm not a huge fan of the Bible in terms of its storytelling ability and stuff, but the Quran takes it to a new low by far. Uh, anyhow, I have no idea, Mr. Virtue. Big finance and stuff like that, I'm not that much interested to begin with. Um, well, the Talmud would be the equivalent of the Haditha. You know, it's not the actual scripture, so to speak, but it's interpretations. And the Jews have been around for 5,000 years arguing nitpicky little details. I mean, I'm not a religious expert, but I think they're the most bureaucratic religion I've ever seen. So, as it's a mess, but we got to worry about the secular mess and what we can clean up there. And I think they've got a plan, and I think we're going to find out real quick if it was a good plan. And then hopefully things will settle down a bit, and the whole situation will become metastable again. Anyhow, any other questions or subjects or anything like that? LBMA to Shanghai. London Metals Exchange, basically. Oh. So, say I'm really not sure what's going to happen, but I got plenty on my plate to deal with. So I'll try not to worry too much about the cosmological issues at this point. Oh, Eva's doing much better than she was a month ago. And I was a little worried about her because she'd never done something so strenuous since before the whole issue, you know. And she held up real well. It's very, very reassuring to me because what she had to do was not super easy, you know. And she held up just fine. Yep, she was kind of sore after the fourth day, but it went away quick. So that's okay. In terms of me, this part-time work is going to be good for my mental state, and we shall see what we shall see on how this. I have no idea what that means, James. I agree. It's like equipment. If you let it sit there, it just freezes up. Yeah, I'm afraid you may be correct there, wage slave. We shall see. Sounds good, Jean-Francois. I agree. I'm starting to get hungry myself. So, anyhow, I'm recovering a little. Okay, honey bunny, keep getting stronger. Well, anyone else got anything to bring up here? And not bad, honey bunny. Your chili's probably hotter than I can handle, though. Okay, why don't we call it a night, honey bunny? So thank you, everybody, for showing up. And hopefully pretty soon I'll have some more interesting stuff to show you. Got maybe some metal detecting to do here not too long from now. We shall see. Anyhow, until next week, happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. Let's see. in stream.